All right. So are you ready to like jump into the future? We're going to do a deep dive today into transhumanism,
Oh, cool.
which is, this movement that is all about like using technology to
Mhm.
basically change what it means to be human,
Right.
like super intelligence,
Right.
living longer,
Yeah.
even like merging with machines, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's wild stuff.
And our source material is this audio lecture from a researcher. And they've been studying this movement for a really long time.
Wow.
So they get into like the history, the philosophy, all the different what ifs.
Oh, that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack all that. But we're also going to like bring in some reality checks along the way too,
Sounds good.
because some of this stuff is pretty far out there. You know.
I think what always gets me is like those futuristic concepts that have always kind of fascinated people. And then transhumanism is like, what if we could actually make it happen?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Exactly. And it's not just like daydreaming anymore. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some pretty big names who are involved in this movement, and it's attracting a lot of attention and resources.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I guess for people who are new to this whole thing, like, let's just start with the basics.
You okay?
Like, what exactly is transhumanism?
Well, I think at its heart, transhumanism is about using technology to kind of enhance human capabilities,
Okay.
to go like way beyond our natural limits.
I see.
So, overcoming things like disease and aging and even like cognitive limitations.
Yeah.
So it's really about pushing the boundaries of what it means to be human.
Okay. So, like, imagine a world where there's no cancer and people are living for like hundreds of years, and we've kind of unlocked the full potential of our brains.
Right.
Is that the kind of thing that transhumanists are like striving for?
Yeah, that's definitely the direction they're heading.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds pretty amazing on the surface, but, I'm sure there's some challenges involved too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's always a flip side.
So, one of the things I found fascinating about transhumanism is how it's evolved. Like, it used to be this fringe idea,
Uh-huh.
but now it's like a global movement with all these followers from, all walks of life.
Right. It's really diverse. It's
Yeah.
not just one type of person.
Scientists, philosophers, tech people, even religious folks who are exploring this through their own lens,
Yeah, it's interesting.
which makes it even more kind of fascinating, I think. But let's go back in time a little bit
Okay.
to the early days.
All right.
So our researcher talks about this story, this incredible story about a spider goat.
A spider goat.
Yeah, like a goat that was a
Okay.
part spider. It was created by DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency.
Oh, wow.
And these goats produce spider silk in their milk.
No way. Really?
Yeah, like I know it sounds bizarre, but it illustrates how people were trying to do these transgenic experiments.
So like crossing species boundaries.
Yeah, they wanted to use the spider silk because it's so strong and lightweight for like military stuff.
Oh, I see. Like for bulletproof vests or something.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not really practical to like milk spiders.
Right. That would be pretty difficult.
Yeah. So they use goats as a source.
Wow. That's ingenious, but also kind of creepy.
Yeah, I know. It makes you think about like what are the ethical boundaries that we might be crossing when we start blending DNA from different species?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And speaking of ethics, like the pharmaceutical industry saw the potential of this technology too, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like what do they want to use it for?
Well, they realized that by creating these human-animal chimeras, which are basically animals with human DNA,
Okay.
they could potentially test new drugs and bypass some of the ethical issues that come with traditional human testing.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of like a shortcut to medical advancements,
Yeah, you could say that.
but with some potentially unsettling consequences. Like it brings up the question of, does the potential good outweigh the ethical concerns of mixing human and animal DNA?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I think that's a debate that's going to go on for a long time.
For sure.
But with all this research and experimentation going on, like this must be costing a fortune.
Oh, yeah. It's not cheap.
Right.
We're talking billions of dollars being poured into transhumanist research from all over the world.
Wow.
Governments and private institutions, you name it.
Billions with a B.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is serious investment. Like, what are some examples of where this funding is actually going?
So in the US, for example, there's DARPA's program called Extended Performance Warfighter.
Okay.
And that's all about enhancing soldiers, like giving them, superhuman strength or endurance.
Right.
It's like that.
Right.
And then you have initiatives like the one at Case Law School where they're literally developing guidelines for human enhancement policy. So they're actually creating the legal framework for a future where, humans are fundamentally different than they are today.
It's like we're building the road as we're driving on it.
Exactly.
But, speaking of that future, like, let's try to see things from a transhumanist perspective for a second.
Right.
Like, what are some of the potential benefits that they envision?
Well, I think a lot of transhumanists are really driven by this desire to, alleviate suffering and enhance, human well-being.
Okay.
So they talk about eradicating diseases, extending lifespans, and even boosting, cognitive abilities to levels that we can't even imagine right now.
Right.
So they really see a future where humans are not just surviving, but they're actually thriving.
Okay, so like pushing the limits of human potential.
Yeah.
Our researcher brought up this concept called post-genderism.
Oh, right.
I'd never heard of that before. What is that?
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating idea, and it's a little controversial, but it's basically the idea of transcending those traditional gender roles and identities through technology.
Okay.
So imagine a world where, the concepts of male and female become, fluid or even obsolete.
So we're not just talking about enhancing our bodies, but like potentially redefining what it means to be human on a fundamental level.
Exactly.
Wow. It makes you think about what kind of future we're actually creating.
For sure.
But what about like having children?
Yeah.
Does that even factor into the transhumanist vision?
It does, and in ways that you might not expect. One idea that's been floated around is this concept of synthetic wombs,
Okay.
where pregnancy could occur outside the human body.
Oh, wow.
So think about it. No morning sickness, no labor pains,
Okay.
just kind of this technologically assisted gestation period.
It's like a totally different way of thinking about, reproduction.
Absolutely.
So we've got living for 1,000 years, redefining gender, synthetic wombs. It's incredible, but it's also a little unsettling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. And it's important to remember, transhumanism isn't just about those utopian dreams.
Right.
There are some potential downsides and risks that we should probably talk about too.
Okay, yeah, let's get into those. Let's hear what the cautionary voices have to say about all this.
All right. So, thinking about the risks of all this,
Yeah.
it's wild to think that this isn't just like a sci-fi thing, This is actually happening now.
Right, yeah, it's not even a question of if it's going to happen, it's when.
Exactly.
So, are there any examples of that, in the real world, of how fast this is all moving?
Well, just look at the first baby born from 3 parents,
Oh, yeah, that was in Britain, right?
Yeah, in Britain. And it sounds like something out of, some crazy dystopian novel, but that actually happened.
Yeah, it's incredible. And also kind of scary.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of both.
So it makes those cautionary voices even more important.
Oh, for sure.
You mentioned Dr. Leon Kass before. He was the chairman of the President's Council on Bioethics during the Bush administration.
That's right.
So what were some of his concerns?
Well, he was right there, seeing these advancements in biotech and the whole transhumanism thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what he saw really bothered him, actually. He actually resigned from his position
Right.
and wrote a book warning about all the dangers. He even compared, humanity to being on an operating table,
oh, wow.
scheduled for this complete, psychic and physiological redesign.
That's intense.
Yeah. It's a pretty powerful image.
Yeah. It sounds like he was worried about losing our humanity, in the quest for all this enhancement.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it.
Were there other people who felt the same way?
Definitely. Professor Francis Fukuyama, a pretty big name in political science, called transhumanism, and all these technologies the most dangerous ideas in human history.
Wow. That's a strong statement.
Yeah. He thought they could lead to, an extinction-level event if we're not careful.
Extinction level? What?
Oh,
Are we talking robots taking over or some
Yeah.
kind of engineered super virus? What are we talking about here?
It's hard to say exactly what form it would take, but I think the main concern is that we're messing with the very essence of what it means to be human,
Right.
and we don't really know what the consequences could be.
It's like opening Pandora's box and hoping for the best, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
But let's go back to some of the more, I guess, immediate concerns. You mentioned the Birkbeck Law School and their prediction about crimes being committed by beings that are only partially human.
Oh, yeah. That was a wild one.
I mean, that sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it?
It totally does. It really makes you think about like our legal system and
Yeah.
how do you even define crime and punishment when the people involved or the beings involved aren't even totally human?
Right.
You know, it's like it really challenges our whole framework.
And I remember reading about that House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing in California
Yeah.
where they were actually discussing the threat of terrorism
Right.
by transhumans. Like they were talking about superhumans and superintelligence and even super animals as weapons.
Yeah, like weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, like how real is that threat, really?
I mean, it might sound crazy, but when you think about how fast this technology is developing,
Yeah.
it's not that far-fetched. Remember those spider goats we were talking about?
Uh-huh.
Like, imagine that, but amped up. You know, creatures that are way stronger and faster, even smarter, and they're designed for warfare. It's a scary thought.
Like something out of a comic book,
Right
but
on.
with real world consequences.
Exactly.
So are we heading towards like a transhumanist arms race then? Is that what we're looking at?
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, governments all over the world are putting tons of money into these technologies, you know, because they're afraid of falling behind.
Yep.
And that kind of pressure can lead to things escalating really quickly. You know, everybody's trying to one-up each other. And you end up with these, like, really powerful and potentially dangerous enhancements.
So it's like this dilemma, right?
Yeah.
Do we go full steam ahead with all these advancements, knowing the risks that they pose, or do we try to slow things down, even though that might mean like falling behind other countries?
It's a tough call, and there's no easy answer. But I think the most important thing is that we need to be talking about this now.
Yeah.
You know, before it's too late. We need open and honest conversations, not just between scientists, but with policymakers, ethicists, the public, everyone. We all need to be involved in shaping this future.
Yeah, we can't just leave it to the experts to decide all this.
Right.
But, you're making me a little nervous with all this talk about risks and dangers.
Sorry.
Like, what about unintended consequences? You brought up genetically modified foods earlier.
Mhm.
Like, what can we learn from that, that whole experience?
Well, I think GMOs are a perfect example of how, like, we try to control nature, and sometimes it backfires.
Yeah.
Like, there's more and more evidence that these GMO crops are actually hurting the environment and human health.
Right.
Like, some studies have shown possible links to cancer and breathing problems and even, like, changes in animal behavior.
So we're basically experimenting on ourselves and the planet without even knowing what's going to happen in the long run.
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling when you think about it that way.
It is. It is. So it seems like the more we learn about this whole transhumanism thing, the more complicated it gets.
It definitely does. And that's why I think it's so important to approach it with, you know, a sense of curiosity and excitement, but also like a healthy dose of caution.
Yeah.
We need to explore the possibilities, but we also have to be mindful of the risks. And most importantly, we need to be having those real conversations about the kind of future that we want to create.
Well said. So I think that leads us perfectly into, the next part of this conversation, which is like the spiritual side of transhumanism.
Oh, yeah.
It's not something that you always hear about, but it's pretty fascinating, I think.
It is. It really makes you think. It's interesting to see how transhumanists are grappling with these big questions about, you know, consciousness and spirituality and like, what is reality anyway?
Right, yeah.
You know, remember Nick Bostrom, the philosopher we were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
He believes that if we merge with technology, we could actually unlock these new ways of perceiving things.
Okay.
Like even tack into realms that are like hidden from us right now.
So like spiritual enlightenment through technology.
Yeah, kind of.
That sounds pretty sci-fi. Is there anything real, like, actually happening with that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, think about the ASU Sophia project.
Okay. Look at.
It's this research project at Arizona State University where they're literally trying to verify and communicate with things like ghosts and aliens.
Wait, they're trying to talk to ghosts, like at a university?
Yep. And even like a universal consciousness. It sounds crazy, but it comes directly from these transhumanist discussions about, you know, expanding our perception and connecting with other realms.
That's wild.
It really is. I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what if we could talk to beings from other dimensions? What would we learn? You know, would it change our understanding of the universe and our place in it?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing to even think about, like, could transhumanism actually change not just our bodies, but our whole view of everything?
I think it has the potential to do just that. And it shows how transhumanism isn't just about, gadgets and gizmos.
Right.
It's also about exploring like the very nature of consciousness and what it means to be spiritual.
Yeah, that's a good point. Makes me wonder how all of this fits in with traditional religious beliefs.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Sure.
Because like many religions teach that, the human body is sacred, created in God's image. And transhumanists are basically saying we can improve on God's design.
Yeah, that's definitely caused some friction.
Yeah.
I mean, some religious leaders see it as like hubris, like humans trying to play God.
Right.
But then you also have those religious transhumanists who believe that these technologies could help us fulfill like God's plan.
Oh, that's right. We were talking about that.
Yeah. It's crazy how this one movement can be interpreted in so many different ways.
It just goes to show how complex it all is.
Yeah,
And how important it is to consider all these different perspectives.
absolutely. We need to be open to different viewpoints and really engage in a meaningful dialogue.
I feel like we've covered a lot in this episode. We've talked about the benefits and the risks of transhumanism, the ethical stuff, even the spiritual side of things.
Yeah, we've gone pretty deep.
It's definitely a topic that deserves our attention.
No doubt about it. The choices we make about this are going to have a huge impact on like the entire future of humanity.
And those choices aren't just for scientists and policymakers to make. They're for all of us.
Exactly. I mean, we need to educate ourselves about this stuff, talk about it openly and honestly, and make sure our voices are heard.
Yeah, because this isn't just about the future. It's about now.
Right.
Like the decisions that we're making today are literally shaping the world of tomorrow.
That's right. And we all need to be active participants in that. We can't just sit back and watch it happen. The future of humanity is at stake here.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into transhumanism,
Yeah.
I'm just struck by how vast and complicated it all is.
It really is.
It's like this topic that forces us to really confront what it means to be human
Right.
and to think about our potential and all these big questions about, life and death and what it all means.
It's a journey into the unknown with both good and bad possibilities. And whether we realize it or not, we're all on that journey together.
The transhumanist future is coming,
Yeah.
ready or not. So are we ready for it? That's the question.
That's a great question. And I think the best part is there's no right or wrong answer. It's about each of us, wrestling with these ideas and figuring out what we believe.
That's a perfect note to end on. Something for our listeners to really chew on. As always, we encourage you to keep learning about this stuff, challenge your own beliefs, and have those tough conversations about the future that we're all building together. Because remember, the future isn't just something that happens to us. We create it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of transhumanism. And until next time, keep those minds curious and keep asking those big questions. So, okay, we've talked about all the big ideas in transhumanism.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the kind of spiritual.
Right.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a minute.
Okay.
How would this stuff actually play out in our daily lives?
Mhm.
If this transhumanist future really happened, what would it look like, practically?
I mean, that's a question that transhumanists are thinking about a lot, too. They're not all just philosophers, right?
Yeah.
Many of them are scientists and engineers, like people who are actively working to make this stuff a reality.
So it's not even a question of if it'll happen, but more like when.
Yeah, I think that's the way a lot of them see it.
That's kind of mind-blowing. But wouldn't that create all sorts of new problems too, like fairness and access?
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge concern. You could easily end up with a situation where, only rich people can afford to enhance themselves
Right.
and everyone else gets left behind.
It's like we already see that with healthcare and education, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone has equal opportunities.
Exactly. And transhumanism could just make those inequalities even worse.
So how do we prevent that? I mean, how do we make sure these technologies are available to everyone, not just the elite?
Well, it's a tough question and there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
But it's something we have to start thinking about now before it's too late, we need regulations and maybe even subsidies, some kind of ethical framework to guide how these technologies are developed and who gets access to them.
It's like we need a whole new set of rules for a transhumanist society.
Right.
And what about the workplace? How would all this affect jobs and the economy?
Oh, man, that's another big one. Imagine you're applying for a job and you're up against someone who's enhanced.
Right, yeah.
Could you even compete? Would employers start discriminating based on how enhanced you are?
Right.
I mean, would we need new laws to protect workers who haven't been enhanced?
Our whole idea of what it means to work and be productive could change.
Totally. And it shows how transhumanism isn't just about individual change, you know? It could transform our whole society.
Yeah, it's both exciting and a little terrifying at the same time. Like this double-edged sword.
I think that's a good way to put it. We have to be aware of both the amazing potential and the serious risks.
And the choices we make now will determine which way it goes.
Exactly. And those choices aren't just for the experts to make, they're for all of us.
Right.
We need to learn about these technologies, talk about them, and speak up about what we want for the future.
Yeah, this isn't just about some far-off future. It's about what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. The decisions we're making today are shaping the world of tomorrow.
And we have to be a part of that. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive into transhumanism, I just keep thinking about how, like, huge and complicated it all is.
It really
It really makes you think about what it means to be human.
Right.
Like, what are our limits and what's possible? You know, it brings up those big questions about life and death and the meaning of it all.
Yeah, it's like we're on this journey into uncharted territory, and there are both amazing things and scary things waiting for us out there. And whether we like it or not, we're all on that journey together.
The transhumanist future is coming, ready or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the big question is, are we ready for it?
That's the question we all have to ask ourselves. And the amazing thing is, there's no right or wrong answer. It's about each of us wrestling with these ideas and figuring out what we believe.
That's a great point to leave our listeners with. As always, we encourage you to keep digging into this stuff, challenge your own assumptions, and have those conversations about the future we're creating. Because the future isn't something that just happens to us. We build it together. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into transhumanism. And until next time, stay curious and keep asking those big questions.